Ladies and gentlemen, Kinley here from Orkney Covered Privateers. I thought I would do a wee cycle around the town of Kirkwall to give you an idea of some of the back streets and so on. It's not going to be a long video, but it will give you an idea of what we have here in Orkney. Put my helmet on. We're going to head up St Olaf Wines here, so it's part of the Orkney Saga Trail. Here on the left hand side you can see what remains of part of the 11th century St Olaf's Kirk, this rounded archway made of yellow sandstone. It's a Kirkwall church in the bay, but the doorway you can see itself in the archway dates back to the 16th century restoration for Bishop Robert Reid. And it was Bishop Robert Reid, funnily enough, who founded Edinburgh University's first part of Edinburgh University was a law school, and it was Bishop Robert Reid that founded this from Orkney. The streets are fairly safe to cycle around. You've just got to be fairly careful, as anywhere really. Downtown Kirkwall though is a system of cars that go one way, so it's not completely cut off. Thank you. The look of suspect from many people's faces. On the right hand side there you've got the Brig Larder. The Brig Larder is a great place actually for food and drink, local food and drink. I'm just going to do a slight U-turn here and head back to the site of the Viking Ting. So this was the area of the site of the Norse Ting, the Parliament, and in 1468 we were gifted as part of a marriage dowry from King Christian I of Norway, Denmark and Sweden to James III of Scotland, and we were once Norwegian and Danish and Swedish, so now we're part of Scotland, but we're still very much sort of along with our roots of our Norse heritage. You can see part of the old archway here, or doorway, heading into what used to be the Ting. Now the Ting, T-I-N-G, or the Thing, means meeting place in Old Norse. So this would have been a place that people met to discuss matters arising in the Norse times, hopefully not losing their heads in the process. What we have here on the right hand side is what used to be an old newspaper shop, and the Orcadian newspaper here in Orkney was first published I think in 1868. And what people used to do is every Thursday morning when the Orcadian newspaper comes out, they would spend their time here. They would spend here having a chat in the morning about all things going on, you know, every week. And it's almost like their ancestors did with the Norsemen. So this old paper shop here, which is now a really good chocolate shop, used to be a place where people would gather up until the sort of early part of the 20th century to discuss matters arising with the Orcadian newspaper. Now this is just a quick overview. I will give you a much more thorough overview of Kirkwall. Big problem is it's quite a big town, and YouTube is quite slow to load videos up there under 10 minutes, so I have to make them quick. Morning, Michael. It's one of the things about being 6'6" and having a big ginger beard is a lot of people know who you are. So Orkney is one of these places that's quite a tight-knit community, but it's also quite amusing because everybody knows you. The old sycamore sycamore tree. Up here on the left hand side, or ahead of me here actually, you might be able to see it says the Ridgeland, 17th century. For almost 100 years until 1740, this house did duty as town hall and prison. Now apparently this house, according to local urban legends, it was very easy to escape from. So when the men from their vessels were put in the brig overnight, they'd scale down these windows here using whatever they could, head to the local boozer, get a few jars in, and then climb back up and go back to bed again. So it was one of the most escaped prisons in Scotland apparently in the 17th century. Useless bit of information for you here on the right hand side is Castle Street, or ahead of me. Castle Street is Britain's shortest A road, so A for Alpha, and it used to be home to a castle called Henry Sinclair's Castle in 1380. And Castle Street is 113 metres long. It's the shortest main road in the United Kingdom. I think it's the A968, but I need to double check that. So you've got St Magnus Cathedral there on my left hand side. So you've got the cathedral steps here ahead of us, and right ahead of us the west entrance of St Magnus Cathedral. It dates back to 1137 AD, and it was built by the Norse, by a man called Ronald Coulson of Norway. Ronald Coulson of Norway built it to remember his uncle Magnus, who was slain on the island of Egilsay on the 15th of April 1117. So you got two gargoyles. You can't really see it on the YouTube video here. Two gargoyles at the top. One on the left hand side is shouting. So this is Hakon, the cousin of Magnus, a powerful warlord from the Old Norse. And you've got Magnus, the gargoyle, on the right, and he's listening, so more of a pious type man. Anyway, I'll tell you more about that at another date. What we have ahead of us here is the road, or Broad Street, and this used to be open water in the 12th century, so the cathedral was actually built on a beach. So if you take a golf ball and let it go in the near the middle section of the crossing of the cathedral, it will run down towards the font at the west entrance. Another old newspaper shop is called the Daily Scoop today. Really good ice cream shop. Does amazing fudge sundaes. Head down Victoria Street now. Great little cycle down Victoria Street. This is one of the oldest streets here in Kirkwall, Victoria Street. Dates back to the 17th century. And on the left hand side here you've got the Orkney Hotel, and the Orkney Hotel there says 1670. That's when it was founded. Orkney Hotel does an amazing range of single malt whiskey for anybody who wants to know. The other great place for single malt whiskey as well is the Linfield. Alright Stuart.
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, good mate, yourself?
Fine, thanks.
Good. You've got the Red Cross here on the left hand side. You've got plenty of charity shops here, or thrift shops you call them in America, here in the Orkney Islands, and I always have a look through them because it's amazing what you can find. Nice jackets and all sorts of good things, because here in Orkney it's quite a wealthy economy, so you've got a lot of very wealthy people, and when you find it, people want to come here and they go to the charity shops to see what amazing things have been handed in. This is a beautiful little lane that heads past the West End Hotel. Great place for food. They do quite heavy portions there as well, so if you've done a really long cycle, good place to go and get a pint of Scapa Special and something to eat, maybe fish and chips. Here in Orkney it tends to be haddock as well, haddock and chips, not cod. Some people have been doing other things, perhaps hake and so on, but haddock is very popular. So a little bit of a shortcut there. one of the main roads that takes you towards the old Balfour Hospital. It's quite funny the amount of people looking at me thinking, why is he speaking to himself? People here in Orkney tend to be quite inquisitive, so probably think I'm a madman on a bike speaking to himself. So ahead of us is an estate, part of Kirkwall. A lot of these buildings date after the Second World War. Most of this area here was used during the Second World War as a garrison and for troops based in Kirkwall. First World War is the same, so many of these buildings here date to after the war. One of the biggest threats up here actually in the Second World War was Highland Distillery. And you'll see that at the top of the hill, the pagodas in the distance. Pagoda roof. And Highland Park had a lot of casks on site, so it was deemed to be a risk for firebombing. And imagine 20,000 casks go up in an air raid. So it had its own anti-aircraft protection, it had its own fire station. And what's funny about the Highland Park story is that many of the soldiers and the personnel, there was this urban myth going around that the personnel would have to go for a bath at the whiskey distillery, so they used the washbacks to bath the soldiers. And so depending on who's doing your tour for you up at the distillery, they may say to you, the saltiness in the whiskey comes from the sailors, which I think is quite funny. So it was closed for production during the Second World War because it was very dangerous. And Highland Park Whisky is one of 2 single malt distilleries here in Orkney. Now I would add that I'm cheating slightly. I'm going uphill on an electric bike. If this had been my other bike I would have struggled. This is called the Ham Branch Road. We've got a tractor behind me now. Normally I would cycle on the road, but heading up this road here, Ham Branch Road, tends to be quite busy. So what we have here is a couple of these nice little buildings on the left. As far as I know, I'm not sure if this is accurate or not, but I think they were built for some of the managers for the people who work at Highland Park. So the cask warehouses here for Highland Park Distillery ahead of us. I think they have approximately 34,000 casks on site. So an impressive amount of casks. So Highland Park Distillery was founded in 1798 by a man called Magnus Cathedral. Now Magnus Cathedral was a very honourable man as a church official or beadle during the day, and at night he was a bit of a bad boy. He was a booze smuggler. So sooner rather than later, in and around about 1796, customs and excise men caught up with him, shut his illicit still down, and in its place was built High Park Distillery. And High Park, interestingly enough, is an old Norse terminology. It means high area of land overlooking a township. And then it became Highland Park, I think in and around 1850. My favourite Highland Park whisky is a Highland Park 18-year-old. It's an amazing single malt. we're going to do is we're just going to turn around here and go back into Kirkwall, because this is quite a wander. So we'll head up the hill briefly here. My neighbours, so funny, it's like my mum. I wave to people and they look blankly at you, and then as they drive past they realise who you are and then they wave, but of course by that time you can't see them. It's a big operation, Highland Park. They changed their branding a few years back to the Viking Soul, because our islands are very ancient and first probably inhabited around about 12,000 years ago, but primarily they have a good Viking feel about them. I myself am quite lucky. I've got a Scandinavian genetic makeup, so it accounts for my crazy red beard. Lots of little rat runs here in Kirkwall that you can either drive through to avoid the traffic at rush hour, which, by the way, rush hour, if you're driving, is about 3 cars of a queue. Nothing like stuck on the M6 or the M8 near Glasgow for 3 hours at a time. I appreciate, ladies and gents, this is boys and girls, if you're watching, that this is quite a long video, but I thought I'd give you a little overlook of late sort of I think it's the 12th of February today, so it's quite cool today. But as you can see, there isn't any snow here in Orkney, and a lot of that is accounted because we've got the Gulf Stream coming in from the west coast of the North Atlantic. It tends to be mild all year round. But what we do get is some pretty hefty wind speed.